Hello ladies and gentlemen. Today I thought I'd make an updated video on what's actually good in the golden token shop. Now for some reason I'm getting I don't know, it feels like I've already made this video recently, so if I have, sorry if that's true. Man, I feel like I have short-term memory loss or some shit these days. But it feels new. I think this is a new video idea that I haven't done recently, so I'm just gonna make it, right? So, how has the golden token shop improved since 3.2? Now that 4.2, the new anniversary, is like 3 days away. The original golden token shop, when it first released, let's just be honest, I wasn't mad at it, but it definitely lacked good options. And by this I mean it was basically just Ruan Mei, okay? It was basically just Ruan Mei that had high value in that shop. Luocha got a tiny bit of an increase in terms of meta value because My Day was there and Hyacine didn't exist yet when this golden token shop was introduced. So you could use Luocha as My Day's best in slot, and at E2, I mean, because My Day values single target healing a lot more and Hyacine is much weaker in single target healing, even after Hyacine's release, he could still be pretty good for My Day as a sustain because of his much stronger single target healing, right? However, all in all, he was still just so weak, and he was basically just the second or actually third best option, I'd say, among there, because you do have Bronya in the golden token shop, right? And Ruan Mei was the only standout. In today's day, with 4.2 and some of the Nova Flares upcoming, a lot has changed, okay? A lot has changed. So, of course, I thought I'd make a video on it. To start us off with, Ruan Mei. Now, Ruan Mei basically has maintained like the same meta value as she had back in 3.2, which is like fucking crazy to say. I swear it's so hard for Ruan Mei to just not be meta, right? The reason I say this is, of course, with time, some stronger supports have released. I'm not saying that like Ruan Mei has gotten buffed or anything. However, the thing with Ruan Mei is that she's always mainly been a break support. Even though she's a generalist support as well, she gives ally speed buffs, weakness break efficiency generally helps with APOC clears. She's always been mainly for that break team. And the reason this matters is, as of recent, Firefly got Nova flared. Firefly received the least of a buff from the addition of Fugue to the break roster, right? The reason this matters is most people were only using Fugue on a Firefly team because Firefly was the most hungry of all the break DPSs for super break multipliers. And Exo Toughness, although cool, and it did help Firefly E2 a bit, without including Firefly E2, the Exo Toughness was really just a tiny bit of extra damage every time she broke enemies, right? Once again, Firefly does not benefit as much from Fugue's gimmicks and Fugue's things that she provides as Boot Hill and Rappa did. So what this means now that she's gotten increased super break multipliers is that Fugue's super break multipliers are no longer as highly valuable as they were for a pre-Nova Firefly. This doesn't mean that they aren't valuable or that they're useless or anything, simply that it's less valuable. And what this means is you can perfectly finally use Ruan Mei, who's free in the golden token shop, as a replacement for your Fugue in a Firefly team, and it won't be that much worse. It'll actually be pretty comparable in a lot of scenarios from what I've seen, right? So with that being said, Ruan Mei makes an amazing Fugue replacement if you do not have her, since Dahlia is a much higher priority pull currently for any break team and especially Fireflies. You can easily get away without a Fugue. Ruan Mei is amazing there, right? So Ruan Mei still, in my opinion, has some just amazing value in that shop, and nobody can deny it, in my opinion. Next, we go into a Nova Flared character being Welt. You guys saw it coming. This guy is a monster now after receiving his recent Nova Flare. Now, unfortunately, he did receive a little bit of a nerf. His 30% vulnerability on enemies turned into, I believe, 100% damage bonus for the team, right? Even if the damage bonus was comparable to the vulnerability buff, that's not really the issue. The issue is that vulnerability is a debuff that basically any type of damage can take advantage of, while damage bonus can't. For example, damage bonus does not work with super break damage, damage bonus does not work with elation damage, shit like this, right? So with that being the case, it is a little sad that he lost the vulnerability in his beta for damage bonus. However, it's still not the end of the world, because even with that change, he's still one of the best ampers in the entirety of the game. And the thing is, Welt actually helps in a certain area that a lot of people might not consider, which is the fact that he can slow enemies a lot with his attacks. A lot of complaints about AA being really annoying to sustain these days without the newest sustains, or just endgame content in general. He could probably help quite a bit with that, being an imaginary character who, if he breaks, delays enemies the most of any element, and once again, the more he attacks, the more he slows the enemies, making sure that you live longer, right? So Welt not only is a really high tier in terms of buffing your team and debuffing enemies, but is also really highly valuable if you are maybe struggling to clear endgame content because of sustain issues. You may be able to clear with the exact same sustain you might not be able to clear with before if you add Welt on that team, just because he's slowing the enemies now, which is helping your sustain be able to actually keep up. On top of this, he got a massive buff to one of his Eidolons. Originally, it was his E6, which got changed to reducing the enemy's resistance by 30%, even stronger than Robin's E1. However, it has now been moved to his E4, which, in my opinion, since he's a standard character, I'm sure there's a lot of people who have him E4 or are close to his E4. And keep in mind, the standard characters are in the golden token shop, so you can use your golden tokens on Welt. In the last year, we have gotten 3 golden tokens. We got one in 3.2 for the last anniversary, we got one in 3.7 for the end of Amphorius, and we're getting another one in 4.2 for Plan Arcadia's anniversary, right? 3 within a year. Even if you theoretically were never able to actually get Welt from a 50-50 loss, someone, if they saved up all their golden tokens, would be able to get E2 literally in like 4 days from now, which is pretty close to that E4, and in my opinion, decently worth it, considering the fact that he's now putting 40% defense reduction, 30% res reduction, 100% damage bonus, slow on enemies. I mean, you really cannot go wrong with it, especially considering he's a standard character, right? Next, we move on to Huo Huo. Now, similar to a little bit of glaze I used to have for Luocha and my reasoning for him having some value, the same applies to Huo Huo, although Huo Huo does have more base value than Luocha. Huo Huo has always been much more of a buffing-esque sustain who did not really focus on the sustain aspect, while Luocha is the opposite. He focused completely on his sustainability and not really anything on his buffing. Huo Huo's team-wide ER gen when she uses her ultimate is quite useful, especially for some energy-hungry characters. And on top of this, she now has a bigger attack buff if your allies have 160 or more energy, for characters like Evanesia and Saber, for example. And on top of this, her sustain has definitely gotten buffed from what it was before. It's a lot better. The problem is her sustain isn't really infallible, kind of similar to a Hyacine. The issue with Huo Huo's sustain is that unlike Hyacine, who automatically heals your allies after they've been attacked, even outside of turns or her ultimate, Huo Huo requires someone on your team to be on their turn to get a indirect heal, right? So if certain enemies have a bounce attack and the RNG is unlucky enough, maybe certain enemies have a huge nuke, or if they act consecutively just way too quickly for your characters to keep up, you will sometimes just die, even if literally your entire team was just on max health, which is pretty bad enemy balancing from this game in all honesty. However, nonetheless, this is to say Huo Huo sustain has been buffed, is better, and will work in 90+% case scenarios. So just understand it's really only like specific, I imagine, anomaly arbitration modes where Huo Huo really probably falls off, right? But nonetheless, she still has amazing value as a free sustain, especially because, once again, she's free. Most people do not want to pull sustains in this game. I have, firsthand noticed this among my community. Like, people would rather get a, E2 S1 Feign on E2 Cyrene before they ever consider pulling a single sustain, because they just don't want to, right? Because you're pulling a character and then you're barely going to see your damage go up on your team, and you're basically just doing it to survive. And they're like, this is boring, right? So yeah, in my opinion, she still has great value there. And then next we have Robin. Now I will say base Robin's flaws are definitely noticeable these days, a lot more noticeable than they used to be. If you do not have a Bronya Lycone or her signature outside of follow-up teams, that downtime on the ultimate is truly egregious. And the reason this matters is, even though she has some slight buffs outside her ultimate, her main buffs are definitely concentrated while she's using her ultimate. So having a massive downtime outside of the ultimate really does not help her value all that much, right? However, in my opinion, the strength in Robin being in this golden token shop isn't her base kit and her base strength. Although, yes, I'm over exaggerating how bad she is here. You can definitely get away with using her in some teams. It is her early Eidolons. She has some of the greatest early Eidolons in the entirety of the game, with the E1 giving a 24% res pen increase to the entire team when she's in her ultimate, and the E2, same thing. When she's into her ultimate, she buffs the entire team, but this time it's for a speed increase, right? And you don't need this E2 at all. I really say E1 is a decent stopping point, and then I'd probably save all my future golden tokens for other future additions, right? However, it goes to show you, if you already own a Robin, or you've maybe saved up 2 golden tokens and you've been waiting for Robin, getting an E1 Robin does definitely still have value to this day, in my opinion. Feel free to disagree, but I feel like it's still decently worth it. And I believe MDPS Ashvale can use Robin decently. It's not the best, especially after his later, more final changes in the beta. He started caring about having Tribby more in his main DPS. However, nonetheless, Robin would still be amazing for that temporarily, and especially considering we're getting a bit of a follow-up meta currently and in the future, if you don't have a new upgrade to Robin, which they'll probably release somewhere in V4, then you'll be able to just use Robin as a filler piece until you are able to afford that upgrade, which has value, right? So, as you can see, Golden Token Shop has gotten a pretty large glow up. From originally basically the only character you care about is Ruan Mei, to now you still care about Ruan Mei because she somehow got increased value for a Firefly team. However, you also have Nova Huo Huo, a much better free sustain in my opinion in comparison to Luocha. You have Robin with some amazing early Eidolons and still a few teams where she can really shine in. You have Nova Welt, one of the best debuffers in the entirety of the game currently, in a standard character with a really good Eidolon on his E4. A lot more variety, a lot more options, and I'm looking forward to what more they're adding to this shop in the future. Now, of course, there's always going to be filler additions that people make fun of, like Topaz. Let's be honest, incredibly underwhelming, because free March 7th from the event, permanent event in this game, and as well as Mo's can be comparable, if not better than her in a lot of scenarios for Fei Xiao. So it's like, why would I even pick up Topaz? However, you know, if you're someone who doesn't care about meta, even though this is what this channel mainly focuses on, you're like, oh, Topaz is hot, she hasn't gotten a rerun in a millennia, I might pick her up. You can do that, right? However, I talk about meta at the end of the day, so that's what this video goes over. Let me know what you guys are going to use your golden token on, or if you're going to keep saving it, you know, let me know. Hope you all have a great day. Hope you all have a great night. Peace out.